let's get right on into it. All right, so our agenda for today, we are going to go over a basic introduction to condition-based maintenance. If you're entirely new to this concept, don't worry, we'll start from the very beginning. You'll be well versed by the end of this session. Then we'll look at condition-based maintenance and meters. We'll take a look into work execution, and then we'll look at reporting and insights. Very, very commonly asked to me here is, okay, I want to get more into it, or I am doing condition-based maintenance, but how do I report on this? How do I see if it's working? How do I see if it's going well? More to come. We'll answer that. And as usual, we will have a Q&A session at the end, so please do remember to stick around for that. We will be answering some of your questions live on the call. FAQs, is it being recorded? Yes, can't say this enough times. It's going to be sent to you via email December 16th, that's Monday. And how can you ask questions throughout the webinar? A couple of different ways of doing so. If you cast your eyes down to the Zoom control panel at the bottom, you should see there are two options in there, one for a chat and one for a Q&A. You can pop your questions in either or. We do have two wonderful members of our support team on the line here today, and they will be typing away answering your questions. And of course, you can feel free to speak and ask for other customers' experiences or advice within the chat section as well. So don't feel like you have to hold those questions in. Please do share them. We'd love to see. All right, background information, a little bit about MaintainX. Our mission is to transform the way frontline professionals manage the equipment and facilities that power our world. We are building for the long term, pushing innovation in mobile workflows, real-time analytics, and open APIs. And of course, we partner with our customers. We have a world-class team here that develops and supports our products with industry expertise in manufacturing facilities and more. Really, everything we do here is to make sure that everything is running well for you fine folks. As you can see, got some of our favorite awards on the right-hand side there. There's always new ones coming in. If you want to learn more about those, you can go have a Google, go have a look. Industry-leading companies trust MaintainX with their operations, and you may see a few names on here that you recognize. But as I always like to emphasize, MaintainX has a spot for everyone. We have a solution for each and every person in this session and outside of it, whether you are a large multinational corporation or whether you are a small mom-and-pop enterprise, does not matter. MaintainX has something for you. All right, I'm ready. Let's go. Condition-based maintenance. So let's start out with some basics here. What is condition-based maintenance? Well, condition-based maintenance is a preventative maintenance strategy characterized by the use of input devices, such as meters or sensors, to record equipment readings. So taking the information that your machine is constantly giving and building your maintenance strategy off the back of that. It is the assignment of maintenance based on the condition of a piece of equipment, rather than on a fixed schedule or after failure. So of course, we'll get more into the maintenance modules and kind of paths in our next slide here. We've talked about this a few times before, but we want to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible. I know a lot of you have lean operations right now. I hear every day, too much work, too few people. Kind of classic outcome there. So condition-based maintenance is all about being effective. It's about tailoring your maintenance to that specific piece of equipment rather than that piece of equipment as a whole. We can look at averages across every single piece of equipment that a manufacturer released and say, probably we'll need to do this after 3 months. Or you could take the readings from your devices directly and say, my iteration of this piece, my piece of equipment is going to need this at this time based on this piece of data. If that sounds a bit opaque, don't worry, stick with me. Why does this matter? Why does it matter that we focus so much on doing things exactly when they're needed to, based on the condition, Well, firstly, we're looking at cost efficiency. Up to 30% of work is performed earlier than necessary, according to IBM research. Now, isn't that interesting? 30% of work is performed earlier than it needs to be. When you have a team that is stretched thin, and we have to do the most that we possibly can, remain as profitable as we can, as efficient as we can with that lean team. If we're trying to move towards being more preventive because we know that that's better than reactive, that's good. That's good. But what if we're overdoing it? What if that's taking up too much of our time because we're running things earlier, we're using our parts earlier, we're using our team's labor when that actually could be done at a later date? How do we prioritize? I'll give you a spoiler, it's condition-based maintenance. Second point here, competitive advantage. We want to stay competitive by extending asset lifetimes and keeping maintenance operations lean. So your assets, of course, we want to make sure that we don't have to replace them all of the time. If it says that that asset should last 10 years, it's a bit rubbish if it only lasts 6 and then we have to invest again to replace it. It's great if it lasts 10, even better if we can make it run perfectly for 12. All right, the evolution of maintenance models here. This is something we come back to time and time and time again here. Start out your reactive maintenance program. Now that is, as it says, it's reactive, it's firefighting. It is something is broken and I'm running to go fix it. You no control in your day, no control of, prediction abilities of when you're going to spend money, when you're going to need parts, when you're going to need to allocate resources, because we're just doing something as it's needed, as it breaks. We all know that's probably not the best way of doing it. It may be that that's mostly what we're doing now, but we know that there's a bit more, right? Next step from that is the preventive maintenance strategy. So maintenance prompted by a theoretical rate of failure. So in theory, I should need to have an oil change every 10,000 kilometers. What if I had a way on my car of knowing actually for you, it's 11,000? Well, that's where we get into condition-based, which is maintenance triggered by the condition of equipment. And this step into condition-based maintenance opens that door to the end goal of predictive maintenance there. Maintenance based on real-time data, predicting failure in advance. So we started out this slide by saying reactive, no way of planning. We just don't know. Predictive, exactly the opposite. You are able to predict when that's going to happen and you can plan for it. Now, it's a lot of work, right, to switch our maintenance strategy. So why should we do that? Well, as you see right here at the bottom, we have up to 40% of savings over reactive maintenance as we move through this process. And we have 8 to 12% savings over preventive maintenance. So we're looking pretty good. I have a poll for you here. Let's see who's awake. Which type of maintenance does your organization perform? And you can select all that apply. Don't feel restricted to just one. Are we looking at reactive maintenance? Are we looking at preventive maintenance, condition-based maintenance, or a mix of some of them? I'll give you a minute just to put your thoughts in there. There we go. Oh, brilliant. That is interesting. So we're looking at 83% of folks have put reactive maintenance, 85% of you preventive maintenance, and 26% condition-based maintenance. And I want to highlight something on that. The last time that we ran a webinar in a similar vein to this on sensors, those results were very different. Most people were on reactive and only a few on preventive. So we're already making shifts through that process, right? Let's open that next door, get more into some condition-based maintenance. Let's start at the beginning. If we're going to do condition-based maintenance, we're looking at meters. But what actually is a meter? A meter, just an input device that you use at your facility to record measurements. So a gauge, anything really that's pulling in that information. I'll give you a few examples. You could have an odometer for mileage. You got temperature, cycles, vibration, energy use. It could be really anything that you want to measure directly from your equipment. Now, in terms of types of meters, I'm going to split them into two bulk kind of categories here. We'll start with manual. Readings are recorded manually by personnel who physically inspect the equipment or read the meter. So you might be doing your rounds in the morning and you're just recording, okay, I'm at X amount today. Okay, today I'm at this amount. You're writing it in manually. Now, sensors, readings are sent to a centralized system over your network without the need for manual intervention, which is a very fancy way of saying that reading goes automatically from your machine directly into another system for you to use it. For example, going directly from your compressor to maintain X, going directly from your forklift to maintain X to tell you, we've just gone above 500 runtime hours, whatever it might be. So another poll here, does your organization use meters to monitor the condition of equipment? Yes, no, I don't know. I'll give you 1 minute on that. All right, let's see. I know that wasn't quite a minute. I'm excited. Yes, 53%, no, 42%, and I don't know, 5%. Brilliant. So over half using meters. And I bet you for the folks who aren't currently using meters, we want to see, can that be useful and how could it be useful? So let's get right into that, shall we? Let's see how we can set up meters, and I'll show you a couple of examples so you can see really how diverse this is. I want to preempt this part actually by saying that I think whenever we talk about condition-based maintenance and whenever we talk about sensors and we talk about meters, there's an assumption from a lot of folks that that needs to be limited to just folks who work in manufacturing or production. And that's not actually the case. Meters and sensors and condition-based maintenance is useful across the board in all of the industries that are using MaintainX. Everyone can benefit from this. So purposefully today, I'm actually working in my hospitality org over here, and I want you to see how helpful this could be. So here we are in MaintainX, and we're going to head directly into our meters to set up a meter. Actually, let me show you my assets here. The asset I'm going to make a work order for today is a freezer. I think across industries, we can all understand a freezer, what we need to do with it. But just so you know exactly, yes, useful for manufacturing, yes, useful for production, but useful for everyone else as well. So let's set up a meter here for my freezer. $10 to whoever guesses what my measurement unit's going to be. So I'm going to say here, this is my temperature meter, and this is my back of house freezer 1. Now I have two types of meter here, manual or IoT. For the purposes of today, I'm going to work with manual, but hold the thought on IoT. We're going to come right on back to that. My measurement unit, sorry to let anyone down here, but it is Celsius. It's the only thing my brain will work with. And the asset, of course, is going to be freezer. And I can even select my reading frequency here. So we're really just populating the basic information. I'm going to put, I want this read every hour. I'm very picky about my freezers. And there we go. We have created a meter. Easy as that. Didn't really take long, did it? It's pretty straightforward so far. Now that we have our meter, what do we want to do with that? Well, we're going to want to make sure that we can get readings in here. So as we can see, no readings yet. This isn't very helpful to me or to anyone. So I'm going to want to make sure I'm able to record some data in here. If I scroll down, I'm able to create a meter reading work order. Again, we're working with a manual meter here. And I'm going to say this is my freezer temp reading. It's already got the meter reading assigned there. I'm going to say it's me that does it because I do everything around here. It's going to be due today. And I'm going to say it does repeat. And I said I want this to be done every hour. So I'm going to have this pop up for me every 60 minutes. I'm very busy with this freezer. This is a low priority task to me because it's a recurring task, always my recommendation. And my category, I'm going to call that inspection. There we go. All right, so I have my meter reading work order, and as you can see, it's pretty easy for me to come in here and say what my temperature should be, which in this case, it's very cold, -9. And there we go. We've recorded our first meter reading. So if we hop back into our meters tab here, there we go, we have a reading. Now this isn't a very exciting graph, so let me show you one that will probably have some more data in. Let's go over here. Yeah, there we go. So this is my plunge pool, and you can see it's got a pH meter on it, and you can see over time, all those readings build up to give us a pretty accurate picture of how it's been running. It's a lot of data right there. You can also see this information from within your asset. If I pull up my freezer, my status and meter readings. I can see my meter right here with its last reading. If I click into it, this is because it's fake account. There we go, see more. I'll be able to see all that information, including my meter graph. All right, so fairly straightforward for us to set up a meter there and make sure we've got those meter readings. But as I mentioned, that was pretty much circling around entirely manual meter readings, right? So one thing I want to highlight is if that seems like a lot of work for you and you want those readings to come in automatically, like we talked about, we have several different ways of doing that at MaintainX. So if you already have a system in place, say SCADA or PLC or something, we can connect directly to that. We can build it. You can build the connection. You can use our API. You can use the MQTT protocol. You got a lot of different options of doing so. you can chat to us about that. If you're using sensors or meters from a third party, we can also connect to those. Again, we're pretty agnostic in that way. So if you're able to build a connection, go for it. If you'd like us to do so, reach out to our team. We have a team for that. And if you'd like to be connected to a third party, we can do so to help you in that way. If all that seems like quite a lot of work, well, you can always use MaintainX sensors. We do have our own line of sensors here. The connection is already built. We have a team to help you get it set up. It's very straightforward and easy to do. If any of those options seem like they interest you, you don't have to do for your whole system in one go. You don't have to do everything. You could always test it out on a smaller component or use a mix of these options. Reach on out to us. Your account manager is going to be most definitely happy to talk to you about this. So reach out to your account manager. And if you don't know who your account manager is, don't worry. Reach out to the support team and they will be happy to put you in touch. So, condition-based maintenance and meters in here. I've got some best practices, whichever format, automatic or manual you're using. Firstly, use clear and standardized meter naming practices. Make sure it's easy for a technician to read. When I made my meter, I kept my reading, so it's temperature in the title, and I also put the name of my asset in the title, just so there could be no freezer-based confusion at my organization. Second best practice here, connect your meters to your assets. Meter data flows directly to connected assets in MaintainX, as I showed you there at the end, making it easier to identify correlations between downtime and equipment readings. So you want all your data centralized in one place. That's your asset kind of hub, the status hub at the top there. So make sure you've connected your meters to your assets. And thirdly, save time by using MaintainX's bulk import template. Reach out to us if you want us to make a lot for you in one go, because we can absolutely help out with that. Boom. So we know how to make our meters. We've concluded our meters section. Now we want to talk about work execution. We're getting those meter readings in. Now what? So here's the reality of the situation. Any real gap that you have in knowing the condition of your equipment and doing your maintenance or creating your maintenance tasks can result in a few not so great things. Firstly, early signs of wear being overlooked, leading to equipment malfunctions and potentially costly downtime. Now, the first question I always get asked by my customers is, oh, but I see it, so I know. That's a lot of work for you to go in then and manually create a work order to go and do something or change a status or do something like that. You're creating effort for yourself. We want to make sure that those early signs of wear are coming directly into the system automatically without you needing to lift a finger, so you can spend your time working on things that actually matter and kind of removing any human error from that process. Second point here, cost overruns. Everyone's tightened their belt this year. We don't want cost to overrun. As we discussed before, any kind of firefighting, any reactive work, any emergency repairs, it's always going to be more costly than doing things in advance because, for example, you might need a part, you might have to pay rush, expedited fees on that. Or flip side, if we're just going according to that theoretical rate of failure, you might be overperforming your maintenance. You might be using parts and using labor too frequently, all of which have an implied sunk cost. I think it's pretty evident, but to recap, why does this matter? Let's talk about trends. 27 companies, 27% of companies have automated the initiation of between 1/4 and 1/2 of their maintenance tasks. That's a lot. That is a lot of time saved that can be used on, what you guys really want to be doing, actually working on your equipment, right? 27% of companies are doing that. We want to make sure that we are keeping with that bracket so that our company remains competitive. Second point, of course, cost reduction. This is always something we need to come back to here. Prioritizing necessary maintenance actions through automation can significantly reduce the time and cost associated with reactive repairs. In a nutshell. Little poll for you here. What triggers the assignment of maintenance in your organization? Is it findings from routine inspections? Is it reported failures? Is it from automated triggers based on equipment readings? Or are we not sure? We just get our work assigned and go with it. Again, you can select all that reply. Don't feel limited to just one option there. And I'm not sure what this one's going to say, so I'm intrigued. All right, let's pop up those responses. Ooh, Ooh, okay. 74% findings from routine inspections, 80% reported failures, 29% automated triggers based on equipment readings, and 6% I don't know. So if you remember our last poll about are we more reactive, preventive, or condition-based, these numbers line up pretty well with that. If we're reactive or we're preventive, it's going to be preventive maybe coming in from those routine inspections. If we're looking reactive, we're going to be coming in from those reports, maybe requests coming in of things breaking. And if we're condition-based, they're coming from those triggers. And I think we had about 30% before that said we were doing conditional maintenance as well. So that lines up very cleanly. All right. So we know why we should be doing it. We know that we should automate that process as much as possible, but how? Let's get into it. I'm going to go back to my trusty temperature meter here. Again, naming conventions, temperature meter, back of house freezer number 1, hard to go wrong. And I'm going to create some automations in here. Now, what I'm seeing is that I have my reading work order, but there's nothing really that's happening with this. It's great to collect that data, but we don't want it to just sit there and collect dust. We want actionable things to happen from this. So we're going to create an automation here. Now, the first automation that I think we should run here is an automation to tell me when we go above a certain threshold. So I'm going to call this temperature alert. Here are my options. So I'm seeing when my meter reading for this asset, yes, that's the correct one. For this meter, yes, that's the correct one. And I can choose here what I want my condition to be. So when it decreases by a certain amount, increases by a certain amount, is between, is equal to, is above, is below, I can really get quite creative in here. In this case, I'm going to go as above. And I'm going to say when that goes above -4, I'm close to freezing there, for one reading, I think that'll do the trick. I would like an alert. I would like to be notified. Now, why wouldn't I want that just to be a work order to go and check it? Well, what if someone just opened the door of the freezer? I don't want to be running around checking that every single time. So we're just going to make a notification alert in here. And I'm going to say that every time that my trusty freezer goes above -4, I want to be alerted for that. So I'll back up in my email there. There we go. That's me. I'm going to call this temperature alert back of house freezer number 1. There we go. You can keep it as simple as that. And I create that automation. And there we go. Every time that there's just a little kind of peak there in that temperature, I'm going to be notified. Simple as that. Now, we mentioned that could just be from someone opening the door. So what I'm thinking here is, what about if that happens multiple times? Then I'm going to start to get concerned. So let's make another automation in here. And this one is going to be, call it repeated temperature alert. Again, this is for my back house freezer. As my temperature meter. Now I'm going to again say when this is above -4. But this time I don't want it to be for just one reading. Now I could choose if I want it to be for X amount of the last Y reading, so 4 out of the last 5 readings, or something else that I could do is for a reading longer than this amount of time. So I'm actually in this case going to say for a reading longer than 12 minutes. If it's gone above that temperature threshold for 12 minutes, I want to go figure out what's going on. Did someone forget to close the door? Is something actually broken? I don't know. I want to know. I'm very nosy. In this case, I'm going to create a work order. And I'm going to use a template here. I already have one set up. A freezer temperature alert. There we go. It's already got my my asset assigned, already assigned to my maintenance team, which I'm in. And we have our freezer trigger check. So we have our procedure set there to go in, investigate that everything's running properly. If not, do something about it. So that's great. That's great. Now, my concern, if that's, for 12 minutes, my concern is what if it's really kaput? I don't want to have to go into my assets or through the work order manually change that asset status, because what if I forget, or what if I make a mistake and I might have to go back and edit it afterwards? I want to make this as simple as possible. So I'm going to make a third automation in here, and I'm going to call that above 0 status. House freezer. Number one. There we go. Again, looking at my same asset here. I'm looking at my same meter. I'm setting myself up a comprehensive strategy here so I know what to do in every single case. I'm going to say in this one, if it's above or equal to exactly 0, freezing, and I could say one reading, I could say multiple readings, reading longer than. In my mind, if we're above freezing in a freezer, one reading and I'm done, I'm going to change that asset status and I'm going to change it to offline failure. And I'm going to say, this is unplanned. Now, whenever my freezer goes above -4 once, I'm going to get a little notification. Whenever it stays above 4 for about 12 minutes, I'm going to make a work order. It's going to make a work order for me. I'm going to go and check it out with my team. And whenever we go above freezing in my freezer, it's automatically going to change it to offline because that's not working. That's giving me more integrity to my data and it's automating that process. Pretty cool, huh? That is a new feature. Go check it out. So some best practices here, multi-level triggers. Set up multiple levels of automations to ensure indications are signaled early and with enough time for intervention. Great example of this that I can give you would be, okay, I've got a bunch of molds. I know that I need to do maintenance to them every 100,000 cycles. I want an alert. I want a notification at 95,000 cycles so that I have enough warning to actually take that out and get it ready for maintenance. Second point, monitor your meter trends. You can base your automation trigger thresholds on your manufacturer's recommendations, and then you can keep monitoring your own data according to your machine to make sure that that's properly calibrated, right? Make sure that your strategy is in line with the performance of your individual piece of equipment. All right. Condition-based maintenance reporting and insight. So we've gone over how to make a meter, how to record your reading, whether it's manually or via a sensor. We know how to set those automations so that different actions trigger at different times. We've taken really thought out of that equation and made sure we're not missing anything. But now we want to get into reporting. Like, how do we tell if we're doing it right, if we need to do it, if something's gone wrong, if something's changed? Very commonly asked question. Well, the reality is it's typically quite difficult. It's historically been not an easy thing to do across industries here. Reason being, we don't have a huge amount of historical equipment data, maybe. If we're just getting into this, we're just putting in our sensors or just putting in our meter readings, we don't have that backlog of data. And it also can be difficult to measure the impact of preventive maintenance. You know, we have the big studies, but how can we tell for you what the impact really is? And that matters because we want to make sure that we have the right size implementation of condition-based maintenance. The goal is to perform exactly the right amount. It's to not under-maintain or not over-maintain. It's very Goldilocks. You know, we want to make sure that we're not overdoing it, not underdoing it. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that it's well calibrated, because if miscalibrated, we're going to be getting those same issues from reactive or preventive, right? We're going to be overdoing the maintenance and overspending, or we're going to be underdoing it and having to rush around for our reactive work. Second point here, continuous improvement. Constantly measuring the return of investment on your condition-based maintenance plans ensures they are sensitive to changes to your equipment over the course of its lifespan. So we want to make sure that we are hitting that right amount of calibration, but that right amount of calibration might change over time as your equipment ages very gracefully and changes itself. So we need to make sure we are constantly monitoring this and reviewing it to make sure we have the right approach and nothing's being missed. So here's a question for you. How would condition-based maintenance data impact your decision-making processes? If you had it, if we've rolled this out fully, would it improve your predictive planning and resource allocation? Would it provide better insights into asset performance? Would it enable quicker responses to potential equipment issues, or are we not sure? And you can pick your one favorite response here. I know I've been very generous with multiple choices so far this time, but this one is pick your favorite. All right, let's see. There we go. Ooh. All right, you've given me a pretty even split here. 31% improving predictive planning and resource allocation, 25% provide better insights into asset performance, 39% enable quicker responses to potential equipment issues, and 5% I don't know. So the highest answer there is enabling quicker responses. But we're not too far behind in predictive planning and better insights as well there. So what I'll try and do here is show you what I would do for a range of those responses. Let's do it. So I like to think of reporting as answering questions for us. It's the best way I find to look at it is to say how to do this, when to do this, what to focus on. So the first question that we probably want to answer here when it comes to condition-based maintenance is when to start it, when to switch to condition-based maintenance. And there's a few reports that I'd like to point you to. So we're going to head into our reporting tab. If you don't see your reporting tab, most likely you're not an administrator in your account. Reporting is restricted to administrators. First thing that we'll look at will actually be in our basic work order reporting here, and it's going to be in my preventive and reactive, my work orders by type graph here. So this will have all the previous work orders that you've done in here. I'm looking at the date range of this year for my organization. And you can actually group this by asset. So I could come in here and see who's really high on my preventive list, who's really high on my reactive list. What are we looking at? Seems like this one's given me a lot of work, so this might be a prime candidate to roll out a CBM plan on. The second place that I would look beyond this would actually be at my time and cost graph. So we scroll down and look at time and cost. And to open up this report, just click on title. There we go. Now, we mentioned since the beginning that the goal of condition-based maintenance is to make sure we're doing exactly the right amount of maintenance, A, to expand its asset lifespan, and B, to make sure we are keeping ourselves lean. We are keeping the costs down, we're keeping our time investment down, and being as effective as we can with those two inputs. So time and cost is exactly where we go. We're seeing the time and we're seeing the parts cost going into this. What I like to do in here is group by asset. So I'm looking at my assets for this year. And I like to order in here by my total cost, so I can see one of my most costly assets to maintain. I can then, based on my knowledge, look into this and do use your discretion, saying, actually, this is just always going to be expensive. It's plunge pool. But my dehumidifier, that's too much to me. Are we over maintaining it? Is this from reactive? I would want to dig more into this asset, and maybe that might be a prime candidate for us to roll out some automations with. You could also do this by looking into asset type and seeing if there's any culprits here. Something I do with a lot of my customers when we want to roll out new initiatives like this is it's easier to focus one type at a time rather than one asset at a time. So in here, I'll probably be looking into my recreation equipment. Final place that I look to see when to switch and what to start on would actually be in my asset health reporting. It's available on our enterprise plan. And I'm going to go to my trusty most problematic assets page. Now in here, I can sort by its availability. So again, I'm seeing for this year what the availability is. And these are pretty similar to the things that are costing me the most money and that had the most PMs on them, you see? So I am now over those 3 reports. I've seen pretty clearly these 3 on every single one. I'm looking into those. Again, with this, if you prefer to look by type rather than individual asset, just switch to type and you can see that right in there. Now, in this case, mobile is actually less available than recreation, but recreation are by far our most costly with some of those assets that have appeared on every single graph in there and at only 89% availability. In my mind, this is my prime candidate. Now, second point here, when do we adjust our equipment? We want to be better informed, right? We want to know how to be moving towards that predictive nature. We want to make sure everything is properly calibrated. How do I know if something's working or if I want to change it? Well, this is very straightforward. Again, I'm looking and I'm using my critical brain to think what is actually appearing on these lists. If I have gone and rolled out a condition-based maintenance plan on those 3 assets that we talked about, and they are still appearing here, something's wrong. I have not set my triggers at the right value. I might need to look into adjusting those. Maybe it's that I'm doing it too frequently, maybe too infrequently. I'm going to check that by looking again at those 3 graphs, my most problematic assets, my work orders by type, and I'm going to be looking at my time and cost reports right here. Now, third question, how do we know if it's working and if it's actually being effective? If we are we're benefiting from it essentially? Should we invest more into this? Should we do more of this because it's actually, given dividends on what we've done before? I have an idea here. Stick with me. When we make our automations and we make those meter triggers, you have a fair few different options that we can put in there. So I'm going to go on this one. Within this work order, I've used a template. You can always create from blank. You have the option to set a category. So if I wanted to, keep adding to this and add in a category, I can do so. And what I've done in this account is I have used that work order template along with the category, scroll down, 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 conditional. Now you can call it what you like, but this is just indicating to me that the work that I'm doing here is based on a CBM plan. And I would attach that to my meter reading work order as well, so that I can really then get a grip on how much time and cost I'm putting into this category as opposed to preventive, as opposed to reactive. And it's very simple to do that. It's just another one of our groupings. So within reporting, we looked at our time and cost. And previously we were grouping by asset or asset type, right? Now what I'm going to want to do is actually group by category and see, okay, let's pretend this is preventive and it's cost me 30,000. This is reactive, 16,000. This is condition-based, 67,000. Do those numbers make sense? Yes? More of it. No? Let's go back, let's make some adjustments and make sure those numbers make sense before we proceed forward. It's really good to have a backstop like this to make sure we know if something is effective. Now, I've shown you three main graphs that I use for this, but if you have something that you think is showing an insight in this way better, use it. This is not an exhaustive list. And if you're thinking, okay, Mary, that's great, but you've been here, there, and everywhere in these reports, I want to remind you, when we're looking for specific insights across different reports, the best and easiest thing to do is to create yourself a custom dashboard. A custom dashboard would only have those tiles that you select, so you would be able to go into your custom dashboard, just open it up, and see only the relevant information. If you'd like to see more about making custom dashboards, I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger here. Go take a look at our reporting webinar. We went into them in great depth for 45 minutes. Alrighty. Let's hop back. Best practices here when it comes to reporting. Evaluate your planned maintenance. I tell my customers this all the time. I'm a right pain. We look for opportunities all of the time. We don't rely solely on our routine maintenance. We want to make sure we're constantly optimizing. When we've made a change that we think will help optimize our strategy further, keep evaluating it. You never stop evaluating it. Make sure there's always improvements to be made. There's always changes. There's always mistakes to catch. And that's what helps us grow and redirect and become the most effective team that we can be. Second point, use custom categories to filter for CBM insights. This is exactly what I was just showing you. Make sure you have a category for everything, every work order triggered via automations, because then you're going to be able to see, okay, how much is that costing me, or how much time are we spending on that compared to if I were doing, for a similar asset, I'm just doing a preventive strategy or I'm just doing a reactive strategy. Make sure you have those kind of checks and balances to go in and be able to back your decisions up with empirical data. Third point, use custom dashboards to consolidate insights. Create custom dashboards for your assets to monitor metrics such as unplanned downtime reasons, inspection flags fails, and condition-based work order completion rate all in one place. That's going to show you that you are keeping on top of this plan and that the plan is effective the way that it should be, really. There are all sorts of different things. I don't think I've ever had one conversation with a customer on this that's been the same. You're all looking for slightly different reporting insights, as you should be. We're all working for different companies, But the wonderful thing about MaintainX is the ability to pull data together in different ways. So create a dashboard that makes sense to you, that has the insights you care about, or the insights that are going to make you look fabulous to your boss. We won't tell them. And with that, we're going to take a pause. I'm going to bring my colleague Zach on the line here, and we're going to pepper me with some questions. So Zach, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Mary, for the introduction. All great stuff you've covered so far. And I can only imagine that after such an exhaustive coverage of this topic, you're ready for some hard-hitting questions. But nonetheless, here we go. Okay.
No time like the present.
First question. So you showed us, you walked us through how to create a meter. As we're going through the process of creating a meter, what if the measurement unit that I need to measure, I want my meter to measure, isn't part of that drop down you showed? What would I do in that case?
That is a very good question. That was actually part of my interview for MaintainX many years ago. The answer is you can just type into where it says the value, the measurement unit. Just type what you want and it'll pop up with an option to create it. If you wanted to have a meter that was measured in the unit of donuts, you could do so. There's nothing that's going to stop you. So feel free to type anything in there and you can create that unit.
Okay, great. Amazing tip. But no, we're not recommending that anybody use donuts as a unit of measurement, but just to show that the sky's the limit in terms of your imagination.
Exactly.
Okay, great. The next question is related to automations. So you showed us how automations can do great things like trigger a work order, send a notification, change an asset status. Is there a way we could set up an automation to combine multiple actions in one automation right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is not at this time. You do what I did, which was I'm doing 3 individual actions on the same one. So say if you wanted a work order to generate and a notification to go to some other people, you would just make the same conditions and have one do a notification, one do a work order. It's going to do the trick. Good question, though.
Gotcha. All right, I love this next question. So scenario, let's say my company rents out trucks. When these trucks are out on the road, we set the status of those trucks as our assets in Maintain X to offline.
Mhm.
When I'm doing some of the reporting you walk me through in the third segment there, how could I exclude the trucks that were offline just because they were on the road for those reasons? Could I somehow segment that out of my reporting data so I get a really kind of clear vision of when things are like truly offline as opposed to just the trucks that were on the road?
Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely can. And if you wanted that to be triggered by an automation, you can, because you can select whichever status you want it to be. But let me show you where you can configure asset custom statuses. So firstly, let me just go to anyone in my account. What you see is the system comes basically with online, offline, and do not track. But you can see I have some others in here like operational testing, failure inspection, maintenance, could be operator error, whatever you need. So you can create custom statuses for that. So you could have a separate downtime reason. So it could be, for example, none of, even other, could be something like that, or you could use do not track. The way that you would set those up is actually you go into your settings, you go into free features, you go into assets, and your asset statuses are right here. So you can add new online, offline reasons, whatever you would need in here. This would be where I would point you to. So just a reminder, settings, features, assets, and just change your asset statuses.
Awesome. Wow, it's that simple.
Easy as pie.
Okay. All right, I've got 2 more questions for you. Next question on reporting. What if I don't have access to that asset health tab in my reporting module? Let's say I'm on the MaintainX Premium plan. How else can I look into the health of our assets without that kind of dedicated dashboard?
Upgrade to enterprise. Now, that is always my recommended option because there are so many things that you can do with the enterprise plan. It really takes it up a notch. And if you're kind of worried about making that step, don't worry. That's why you have my whole team is to make sure you're set up for success in that regard. But if you are in our premium plan and you don't have access to that and you want to be able to get some of those insights, you're going to be doing a little bit of manual effort. You do have the all of these under your work orders. So we talked about work orders by type and we talked about time and cost. You do have those accessible to you, but of course we don't have this most problematic assets or anything down there on the asset health page. What you can do is some manual work. So you can go on export data and export your asset statuses. So the historic status from till type dates in here. So you could always pull this out to a CSV and do some manual manipulation.
Okay. All right. So the data's there, but a little more legwork required if you don't have that the asset health
Exactly.
dashboard. Okay. Last question. I love this question. I know you did too, because I think it really gets to the heart of today's topics. Let's say I'm looking at my asset health reports or the status of my assets, and everything's in the green. I'm seeing everything is online as it should be. So top level things look great. But how can I dig a level deeper and determine opportunities or identify opportunities where I could be spacing out my maintenance with a little more sensitivity, like to get to that truly kind of condition-based steps? How do I kind of read between the lines of everything's in the green to get to that true condition-based optimization?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna vary depending on your industry and depending on the customer themselves. But firstly, I look at relative data, which is why we went into those groupings and we ordered in your assets. Everything can be in the green, but what's more in the green than something else? Check it out, dive down that way. The second thing is that you really want to think critically. We've said it a few times in this webinar. Look at how much it costs to run the maintenance on the assets and how often you're actually running your PMs currently, and see how much repairs might be if something were to go wrong, right? And then see if we can push those thresholds a little. For example, if I got an oil change every single week, great. I'm good to go. But if that labor cost me $50 each change, it's not worth doing it until I hit my 10K marker. I need to make sure I'm not overspending right now to do that. When everything is in the green, that's really great, but most likely we're doing things a little too soon. We're getting to things really early. So we want to make sure we're looking into the relative cost of how much time and effort we're putting into maintaining that right now, and how much better it could be if we could identify what exactly those failure points might be and what a trigger in advance of that could be, so that we can run a preventive maintenance strategy that's based on those actual thresholds, not on our theoretical rate, right? So that's how we make sure that we optimize within things that could be green. Now, that's going to be a different threshold for everyone. It's going to be a different prioritization for every customer that we speak to. So what I would say to do is look into that data, trust yourself, trust that you know your assets, do some research and dig into it. And if you need advice or guidance, reach out to us. We're happy to help as much as we can. But I would also recommend reach out within the MaintainX community as well, right? And see if anyone else is in a similar position and can give you any guidance.
Great. Love it. All right, that's it. That's it for questions, Mary. I think you can take us
Thank you
home.
so much. Thank you, Zach. All right, so a little summary here. Key takeaways. Use condition-based maintenance to help optimize your PM strategy. That is, if you have one takeaway from today, that's that CBM will help you optimize, and we should be doing it. It reduces the amount of unnecessary maintenance we perform without sacrificing the goal of decrease unplanned downtime, if done correctly. We're going to use our reports to make sure it is. Second point here, leverage input devices such as meters or sensors to make CBM a reality. They can make condition-based maintenance possible by giving you the data you need to actually mark those thresholds and create those actions, right? So it doesn't matter whether that reading is recorded manually or transmitted over a network. It's still data that's in your system. It's still something that can be actioned. But if we bring them in automatically, you are saving yourself some time and effort, and you are making sure that things are noticed right away, not just when someone next checks it. So again, if you're interested in those sensor options, reach out to our team and we will be happy to guide you, whether it's using your existing sensors, using some you're interested in, or using our own as well. Third point, use automations to close the gap between the state of your equipment and work execution. Let's not have those things be siloed, and let's not have them be manual. Minimize your response times and your margin for error by automating that step of the process. Fourth point, regularly evaluate the ROI of your CBM strategy. Analyze your reports on a frequent, and I would like to say ongoing, basis to gain continuous insight into the role that condition-based maintenance plays in reducing unplanned downtime, improving equipment reliability, and optimizing maintenance schedules at your facility. Let's keep analyzing that data. It is always going to bear fruit. And of course, here's some resources. So you always have our Feature 101 on office hours webinars. You can learn live from a MaintainX product expert. Features 101 we're doing monthly, and office hours monthly as well. So Feature 101, of course, we go into a feature pretty deep and give you all the information. Office hours, it's a Q&A session. Come and pepper me with questions. I love to see if you guys can stump me, and you sometimes do. So feel free to come to those if you'd like just a more informal Q&A session. Second option here, MaintainX Academy. You can learn at your own pace through certifications, guides, and courses, and our webinar recordings are accessible there as well if you'd like to go back and take a look at any we've previously done. You also have the MaintainX community, which I mentioned before. You can learn from other maintenance professionals through discussion boards. So that's other users of MaintainX. You can always chit chat and share advice and practices. And I would like to highlight, we have a MaintainX Masterclass coming up on December 18th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern, that's 10 Pacific. Topic, cut maintenance costs and maximize uptime in 2025. Now that is set to be a truly special webinar. It's going to be hosted by one of our co-founders, Nick Haas, and also with Greg Wortman, who is from the Ready Mix companies of CRH. So really excited to see his insights on that. I'm going to be attending, and I hope you folks will too. Check out the chat if you'd like a link there. And finally, thank you. Thanks for sticking with me here for the last 50 minutes. I hope we all learned something and have some takeaways. A reminder to fill out your 1-minute survey following the webinar. It really does help us to make these sessions the best they possibly can be. We take all your feedback and action it. So please do fill that out. We'd love to hear from you. And on behalf of myself and the team here, thank you for joining and have a great rest of your day.